Okay, we're going to continue here through the 10-1. That's long, but we're going to talk about this one right here. How does that technology make its way to the United States? And we're going to talk about some key individuals here. So this man right here is Samuel Slater. Samuel Slater is sometimes known as the father of American manufacturing. It's funny that he's the father of it, even though he's not born in the United States. He's actually a British citizen. He was born in Great Britain. But the reason why he gets the title is because he is the person who basically memorized, or kind of stole, the British mill machines' designs. So what he did is he visited these various mills throughout England and was able to see the type of technology that they had, and then he was able to go back to his room where he was staying in the various inns and kind of sketch what he was seeing. And then what he was able to do is use those sketching and use those drawings and basically find engineers to basically begin the textile mills that we now have in New England that starts the American version of the Industrial Revolution here. So he takes this technology, and Samuel Slater is going to start his first mill in Pawtucket. That's how we say it, Pawtucket. It's an Indian name. In Pawtucket, Rhode Island. And again, the reason, as you can sort of see it right here, it's on the Blackstone River. So again, the idea of that power source is water. Now his first mill makes just thread. That's it. That's it. All it makes is thread. He doesn't make cloth. He just makes thread. Then it goes to another factory, so he ships it out, goes to another factory that just takes that thread and then weaves it into cloth. This next slide just sort of shows you his mill up in Pawtucket, and yes, it's still there. So this is one side of it, and then this is the other. So you can sort of see the water and the resources right there for him to power his early mill. So as we go on to the next one, we're going to talk about another key individual right here. His name is Francis Cabot Lowell, is the way we say that, Francis Cabot Lowell. And his importance is also very important, just as much as Samuel Slater. So Francis Cabot Lowell basically does this. He starts a factory in Waltham, Massachusetts. And so what he does is basically create the idea that you guys know of as, quote unquote, a factory. Okay, so when we think of a factory, we think of raw materials coming in one end and a finished product coming out of the other end. That idea is the brainchild of Francis Cabot Lowell. He does pretty much the same type of thing. You can sort of see here's Waltham today. It's now named Lowell after Francis Cabot Lowell. So the point is, he is the one that kind of develops this idea of a factory system. So if you have that down, that's fine. So let's get ready to write a definition here. So here is what it would have looked like at the time. And a factory system is the combining of steps under one roof. So today we just tend to think that that's the way they always did it, but it was Francis Cabot Lowell that took the spinning and the weaving and the dyeing and everything else and put it all under one large roof, literally, and creates the factory system that we know of today. And in doing so, he increases efficiency and lowers his costs, all which were important if you want to make a profit. So we go back to our picture that started our discussions, this idea of factory work or mill work then, mill work or factory work today. So very much like, it's the same kind of concept, different type of products that are made. Factory work in the early 20th century. This is actually taken along the lines of Henry Ford's assembly line. You can obviously see they're making automobiles. Okay, so the product goes by, but the workers stay in one place. Okay, modern day textile mill. So look at how it's literally improved, but you're still spinning thread. Okay, it's a little nicer environment. The machines are doing all the work, and it's less human interaction. You don't see people all over the place tending to these machines. All right, let's look at this next one. So right here in the middle, explain why interchangeable parts were considered so revolutionary. And then try and give an example of a product that uses interchangeable parts today in the yellow box. Hopefully you didn't put just a screw and a nut. I saw that too many times on too many presentations. If you look around your home and things like that, something that's made up of moving parts obviously has interchangeable parts. Something breaks on it, you just get a new one. Most people think of the car. You can think of various parts of the car that have interchangeable parts. The idea of just saying the car is a little too general. So here we go. The interchangeable parts is the brainchild of, this guy again, Eli Whitney. So Eli Whitney kind of comes up with this idea that you could mass produce various parts of something, and that way it would lower cost to produce it, and then you could produce it much faster. So if you think about things like if you read, he basically got a contract for making muskets for the government. And so what he thought is that I can create identical pieces, and that way if something fails, something breaks or whatever else, I just replace that small part. I don't have to replace the entire musket. Before that, each musket that was made by a gunsmith was in some ways a work of art as much as it was a some type of device. So what he does is he comes up with this idea that I'm going to make thousands of identical parts to a product that's going to be easy to mass produce by unskilled labor, meaning somebody's going to keep making the hammers for it and everything else. So the point was, in doing so, you mass produce assembly. So it leads to lower production costs of the product. So one person just does the same thing over and over and over again. And that way they get really good at it. It's going to lead to more sales, and if more sales are going to lead to more profit. So that's what basically pushed him to push forward the idea of interchangeable parts. All right, the last part here, what problems came with the growth of towns and cities? So this is always interesting, and hopefully it drives you into learning more about this. But as we discussed, everything has a positive benefit and then a negative side. And so even though the Industrial Revolution pushed forward the growth of small towns into larger cities, you also had what we call urbanization, but there's downsides of urbanization. So think about the reasons why you like to go to a big city. Okay? Think about if you want to go to Philly, you want to go to New York. Why do you like going there? Well, it might offer opportunities that you do not have where you live currently. But then there's also downsides of going to a place like Philly and New York today. It's dirtier, there's more traffic, you might not feel as safe. But let's get into those. So here we go. Take a look at this next one. So the problems of growth of cities. So take a look. These are some pictures here. You can sort of see this is Brooklyn, New York. It says a slum. Okay. Again, here's a street scene. All right. It must be a big deal because you can sort of see some of these pictures, people even stop and kind of pose. They realize somebody's taking a picture. Okay. But obviously what you also see is tons of overcrowding. Okay. If you look here, there's no automobiles. Okay, folks. Everything is powered by animals. And so in a city like this, you have blocks and blocks, and you have horses. And of course, we understand the normal parts of animal nature, and that is they all go to the bathroom. So a city is filled, literally, thousands of pounds of manure are on the streets. This is a picture inside a tenement, inside some of these places. They're not very nice. The idea, it's very kind of cramped and crowded. People began to take pictures to show how some of these working poor are living. Okay, they're living sometimes multi-generational, meaning there's mom and dad, and there's grandparents, grandchildren. There's, it's really an unsafe kind of situation. So as we sort of see here, this is kind of a typical American street scene, but you have to understand what are the problems with growing urbanization. So my question is, do you want to live here? Does this look like a place that you would want to live? Kips Bay, by the way, if you look it up, is New York City again. So again, this is New York City. So would you want to live here? Probably, maybe not. Why not? Well, let's talk about it. Disease. You got that many people that close together, you're going to have disease spreading easily. Also, remember, this is in the age before vaccinations of various things we don't deal with anymore. Okay? So, disease spreads easily if you're in overcrowded conditions. There's a lack of sanitation. Most of these places do not have indoor plumbing. Okay? The back of it probably has some type of, basically you're going to go to an outhouse. Okay? Again, no public sewers. This is in the age before sewers are developed. So the idea of disease is a constant looming threat over cities. Other than that, you probably wrote down also fire. Because if fire were to develop here, remember, this is before there are fire codes. All those types of laws about sprinklers and things like that, that's not yet been developed. So fire also was a huge threat in a city because as it would spread. So these are the things that were the downsides of the growth of industrialization, is basically poor sanitation, overcrowding, and the threat of fire over many of these cities. So we're going to end it here, and then we'll move on with the final part.